Hi, I'm Brienne. I'm in Spain leading a workshop, and I thought while I was here, I would do a little gouache demo, plein air. One of the biggest mistakes beginners make is painting details too soon. In this demo, I will show you how to start with larger shapes and you can create a stronger painting. These old boats are going to be the perfect subject to demonstrate how I simplify shapes before refining details. I will show you my process and I will give you tips along the way of how I approach gouache and plein air. Let's get painting. Gouache becomes much easier when you think in layers. I start almost like a watercolor, thin and washy. Then I slowly start to build thicker, opaque shapes on top, basically working thin paint to thick paint. So when I paint in watercolor, I do what I call a first wash. Basically, I'm getting rid of most of the white paper. When I work in gouache, I do something kind of similar. So what I'm doing here is just painting around any of the white of the boats. Now, working in gouache, I am going to come back in with tinted white, using titanium white gouache. But I like to paint around the whites because even though I have opaque paint, I don't want it on top of something colored. Okay, that's the main thing. So right here you can see I'm changing colors as I paint. Now as I start into the sand, and I'm letting things wash together, that sand color. The sand, this shape is going to pretty much stay as is. I'm not going to bring in other colors on top, other more opaque colors on top. So one reason why I like to start off with this washy block-in layer is that I let some of those transparent passages show through. So I'm not going to cover everything in opaque gouache. You can see I'm adding a little bit of lilac to that warm wash right there. And I'm going to bring in just, with those ropes, I'm just setting a base tone, basically toning it so that it's not all white paper. So the idea is by blocking this in, it gets rid of the white paper. I'm not focusing on details. I'm just focusing on the big shapes. It's okay if they wash together, blend, mix, because I'm going to be refining the shapes more as I paint in the later stages. So bringing in some of this red, which of course, again, I can always go over. This is just to give me something to start with, basically. And I find if I start out thin like this, then I can use that in later stages. So here I am splattering with some of that lilac and then squirting it, letting it all blend together, and that's going to give me a little bit of texture in the sand. Okay, with that first layer dry, now I'm going to start bringing in, and again, focusing on the big shapes. So notice that I've added for you a kind of reference photo so you can see basically what I was looking at, but remember it's plein air, so shadows might be a little different as I painted. But then also, more importantly, the value study. So I did that value study first when I got there. So I set the idea of what I wanted my values to look like. Now the big piece is that this water is a darker value. It's darker value than the sand and it's darker than the white of the boats. So that's what I'm setting right now, is this darker value. Now notice how it's kind of dry, and this is the thing with gouache, is it can be kind of dry. Water is your medium, basically, to help thin it out so that you can paint it. But I'm not worried. I'm changing up the dark color, that blue, so I'm warming it up as it comes towards the foreground, because I noticed there were warm tones in that water. And again, this is the base value of the water, the darker value of the water. So eventually I'll come back over with something lighter. Okay, now I'm bringing in more of this middle value in dark. Again, those ropes, I'm not painting individual ropes, I'm painting big masses. So when you're trying to decide what should I paint next, make sure, what I usually like to do is make sure I've got the big value masses in first before I worry about too many details. And that little back of the boat might have seemed like a detail, and it is, but it's a shape. There's that darker shape that's back there that helps inform the shape of the boat. So anything like that is definitely something that I would work on at this stage. Now, when you kind of go back, you know, when I'm doing painting a shape, I am varying the mixture and the combination of the colors a little bit. I've just kind of got this warmish gray, which is going to be that shadow color that's on those boats, under the rim of the boats. Now I notice that I need to darken the shadow of the blue part under the boats. And so that's what I'm doing here. And again, it's set some value, then I can refine it, vary the colors a little bit, look what's darker. And what's nice about gouache is it's difficult because the lighter values, when we start using the white, they tend to dry a little darker, but yet the darker areas tend to dry a little lighter. So it's tricky, I'm not gonna lie, but it is pretty forgiving. This is why I love gouache, and it's pretty immediate. You can do this very quickly, and you can change it. Like right there, I noticed it needed to be lighter, so I added a little more white and just went right over the shape. So I use the shapes that are on my painting to help me evaluate the value shapes, because as the gouache dries, it's going to change. But the nice thing is you can just go over the shape again to try to get the more correct value, or at least the value relationship with the adjacent shapes. So here, just bringing in some more shape within that mass of rope, right? By doing a few negative painting shapes, I'm starting to indicate the form of the rope without drawing each little thing. Okay, now I brought in the shadow shape, and that's a key point for sure. It's a key shape. And I've set that. Notice how I made the shape of that shadow varied, and it informs the terrain of the sand. So I was really looking at what I saw when I was on site. Now, bringing in just a few, I'm varying within the shadow. There's lighter portions, there's darker portions. There were some boards that the boats were sitting on, and that's kind of the shape. Again, don't try to think of the thing. Don't try to think of the object, think of the shape. And as you build these shapes together, eventually it'll all make sense. Dropping in a few darks right at the base, you can see how that punch of dark at the bottom of the boat helps to set that boat on the ground. Varying those colors within the shadow is very important. Okay, now I get to start bringing in the fun part, the white, okay, the lights. So I have titanium white gouache, which I like Da Vinci. I like it because it's really thick. And then I'm tinting it. So this is not pure white right out of the tube. Notice how it's warmer. And it's warmer than the white of the paper. This is why I don't leave the white of the paper. I want to tint the gouache so that I have variation. Some will be warmer, some will be cooler. So I'm always going to tint it with something. So now some of the whites that I'm bringing in are going to be a little cooler than the ones on top. And what I'm focusing on is the planes on the boat are going to shift a little bit, so that the planes that are facing the sun will be warmer than those that are facing a little away from the sun, even though they still might be quote unquote white. Okay, so remember that there's so many variation of white. So sometimes we tend to average out the colors. We think, oh, it's a white boat, I need white. Well, yes, but what kind of white? See there, I brought in a really warm white because that plane of the boat is facing the sun. So I need to do that. Now here's where that portion of the boat was a little darker. Now I'm not following the reference photo. Remember, the shadow was changing a little bit, and I like the idea of just a subtle shadow, not, you know, full on shadow in the front of those boats. So that's why I changed it a little. But either way, you get to adjust these lights. Now, one thing I've learned with gouache is that you need more white than you think for a light value. So it's going to look really white and chalky on your palette. but then when you put it on with the other colors, it'll read right. So don't be afraid of adding white. I use a lot more white than any other color in a gouache painting, just like I would in an oil, actually. Okay, so now that base dark water, remember that big dark shape that we set at the beginning? Now I can refine and bring in some lighter values of those ripples, okay? So it's a lighter value. I'm using horizontal strokes. Notice how it's darkening as it's drying, but I'm adjusting the color, lighter up front, darker as it was receding in the back. So these little suggestions suggest and gives the water its definition. But it was more, the important point is, it's that dark value that's important for the overall design and composition of this painting. So I wanted to set those big shape values first. Then I'm refining, like right here, where I'm taking the white and I'm refining the shapes ever so slightly. So now with my big shapes in place, I can bring out my detail brush, punch out a few darks, bring in some highlights. And here's where the refining and the detail comes in, and you can put as much detail or as little detail as you want. But the key point is, and this is where most beginners lose sight of the main goal. They start with the details because those are so easy to see and they're so much fun. But if you can learn how to focus on the big shapes first, then bring in these little details, your paintings will be stronger and more often work out. So now I'm bringing in little details of the lettering on the side of the boat. All this is fun. And I'm finished with this little study here. So let's look at the final painting. And remember, the key thing is that I blocked in the large matches first. Ignore the detail early. I work thin to thick, transparent to opaque, and remember to simplify before refining. Thanks for watching. I hope that this video was helpful. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want to see more tips and tutorials and full demonstrations, please visit my website at travelingcolorstudio.com. Thanks, and until next time, happy painting.